As Milwaukee's Jewish population continues growing, it means more people to celebrate, more Jewish engagement opportunities, and more support when someone needs it. This past year brought us plenty to celebrate: moments of joy and hope, memorable summer camps, successful campaigns and programs, and a continued safe and secure Jewish community. And it's because of your support. But the past year also saw another historic rise in anti-Semitic incidents, both abroad and right here at home, along with an increase of episodes involving violence.
Both diplomatic staff at the Israeli embassy were killed. Tonight, it's being investigated as a targeted terror attack.
In the first 24 hours since the fire attack on a march in Colorado calling for the release of Israeli hostages, members of the local Jewish community responding to what has been, so far, a holiday on edge.
We're going to honor the memory of those very, very, very good men who lost their lives.
The other victim, Melvin Kravitz, killed by the attacker.
This is a targeted attack on Jewish Australians on the first day of Hanukkah.
The most frightening elements of these incidents are the increase in volume and violence, how these attacks are getting normalized by society. And it's our job to make sure this doesn't happen. We won't let the oys outshine the joys. For nearly 125 years, the Milwaukee Jewish Federation has been a leader, a protector, an advocate, an investor and builder of the Jewish community. This is most evident in the incredible engagement opportunities and events produced over the last year. This included Hineni, a night of community pride and purpose, an unforgettable evening of storytelling, music, and conversations. The Violins of Hope Residency, a 5-month chapter centered on remembrance, resilience, and music. The October 7th commemoration, where we found strength in one another and affirmed the enduring resilience of the Jewish people with an afternoon of hope, unity, and reflection. November brought us the Weinstein Cohort 9 trip to Israel. And Valor, Women's Philanthropy's signature campaign event, a celebratory evening that brings Milwaukee Jewish women together to strengthen our community through collective giving, shared purpose, and the power of female-led philanthropy. And earlier this year, the last hostage was recovered from Gaza after 843 days. These past few months, we've had the honor of acknowledging local teachers at our annual Salute to Jewish Educators. The JCRC and Black Jewish Alliance Freedom Seder, a celebration of solidarity to combat anti-Semitism and racism. Our 2026 Yamim Remembrance and Celebration, where the Yad Mordechai delegation shared stories of resilience, trauma, and recovery following the October 7th attacks. The Next Gen Young Leadership Celebration, honoring emerging leaders moving our community forward. And Governor Evers signing historic legislation to help fight anti-Semitism, ensuring that all Wisconsin can live free from hate and intimidation, regardless of race, religion, or ethnicity. And finally, our Economic Forum and the Herb Kohl Service Award, honoring Jewish community legends each of the last 2 years. Living in a time when anti-Semitism and hate continue to rise is challenging, but our resilience is mighty, and our commitment to Jews across the globe and right here at home is unwavering. This federation has served this community for 124 years, and we will continue to celebrate our heritage, protect our people, acknowledge our accomplishments, and support each other during times of challenge. And thanks to our comprehensive demographic study of our Jewish community, we have the most data to work with since 2011. It will provide the critical insights necessary to guide our planning and priorities to help shape a vibrant, responsive Jewish future for the next decade and beyond. We are shaped by our past and fueled by the stewardship of our legacy. Thanks to your engagement and your support, it's a future the Milwaukee Jewish Federation is building with strength and optimism, as one.
When I watch this year in review, my only reaction is, wow. So much important work, so many critical moments, many wonderful, but some sadly upsetting. But no matter what was happening in the Jewish community, the Federation was there, supporting leadership development through the Weinstein cohort, completing our community study, launching our strategic planning process, bringing the remarkable Violins of Hope exhibit and its educational programming to Milwaukee, and helping to secure the passage of the IRA definition of anti-Semitism into state law. And that is just the highlight reel. When you step back and you look at all this work, it's had a very significant impact on our community. Welcome to the 2026 Milwaukee Jewish Federation's annual meeting. I'm Judy Corin, and this is my final annual meeting as the board chair of this incredible organization. These last 2 years have seen a lot of change, a lot of achievement, too much heartbreak, but tremendous growth. Among those changes is this annual meeting and how we use it. In addition to moving it to June, tonight you're going to see more data than is typical, and we're going to open it up for questions and answers at the end, so take notes. Tonight we'll be conducting board business with elections and our chair transition. We'll hear from our president and CEO, Miriam Rosenzweig, and at long last we'll be sharing the findings of our community demographic study. That was done with Brandeis University. Before we do all that, I'd like to invite to the stage Moshe Katz to lead us in a Devar Torah.
I have the honor of waking up and going to sleep to that voice, not that voice. That would have been really nasty, but the other voice you heard on the video. So great job, Deb. I want to do something that's actually off script for a second because I think it's just really spectacular. There are a bunch of kids in the room who have not been kids for a long time, and I really want to just address them for a second. For the sake of your parents, for the sake of all this, I love that there's a next generation in this room tonight. For Judy's kids, for Sarah's kids, and any other child that's in the room. And for that matter, that means a lot of us because thank God, some of your parents are here as well, and I think it's just really awesome. So thank you to the parents and to the generations that are here. Get you from each of your tribes wise men in understanding and full of knowledge, and I will make them for heads over you. From Dvarim or Deuteronomy 1:13. These words were written thousands of years ago and began our journey into the understanding of how we are to find great leaders. There are key components that include the need from us to be wise, to be smart and clever, and most importantly, in my opinion, to be compassionate. Many of us turn to Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory when we want a deeper understanding of any given subject. He shared 7 principles of Jewish leadership, and they are: leadership begins with taking responsibility. No one can lead alone. Leadership is about the future. Leaders learn. Leadership means believing in the people you lead. Leadership involves a sense of timing and pace. And leadership is stressful and emotionally demanding. We say Lihitra'ot tonight, and I want to take a few moments to share my perspective on why this particular leader has earned my respect and admiration using the principles of Rabbi Sacks. That's Judy. I love this photo and the people in it. It's actually a photo that Judy bombed herself into a couple of summers ago. Little did she know that someday I'd use it, and tonight, in fact, is that day. Early in our biblical history, leaders took absolutely no responsibility. Not Adam, not Eve, not Cain, and not even Noah. Judy, on the other hand, has taken responsibility. She used it, in fact, as her code of ethics, deciding what should or shouldn't be done, knowing that she would be responsible with whatever decision would be made. And she would do with Rabbi Sachs' second principle in mind. Just as Jethro learned that leading isn't a solo practice, Judy started her career that same way. Judy leaned on her lay and professional team. She questioned, she asked for advice, and she used her wisdom both as a medical professional and a businesswoman as pathways to better understand just what to do. Prior board chairs were on her speed dial, I know. Miriam and Judy were in each other's ears regularly. Judy knew that the future of our community would be impacted by her leadership. She was central, along with Joan Lubar and Betsy Rosenblum, in bringing forth our strategic plan. While that plan is still in process, her fingerprints will be embedded on it for years to come. Lord Sachs shared that leaders learn. On any given day, Judy found herself learning more about herself and our community. She threw herself, just like she did as campaign chair, into the sea of communal life. She attended countless events, meetings, and gatherings, not just at the Federation, but beyond. She shared her appreciation for all the work our community organizations do to make us all thrive. I've seen how Judy trusted her Milwaukee Jewish Federation staff, not just the leadership team, but those around them as well. She believed in them and their abilities. Sachs shared that kings had power but little influence. Prophets had influence but little power. I believe that Judy learned how to have both power and influence without ever having to brag or boast about either one. I know that for many of us, 2 years can seem like a lifetime, and yet we also know how fast they can slip by. Judy had a real sense of just how fleeting this 2-year gig would be. Early on, she was cautioned that the first year is like drinking water from a fire hose, and yet the second year feels like moments since the first year started. Rabbi Sachs must have met Judy and must have known we'd be in the mess we are in today when he concluded these principles with a statement, leadership is stressful and emotionally demanding. Miriam and Judy and many of us, in fact, all of us, have had one hell of a 20-year run in the past 2 years. Both have committed countless hours to demanding and stress-filled matters. I'm sure that Miriam will reflect on one of these in her annual summary. I'm going to steal a line from Miriam, and I hope you forgive me. Great leaders lead when they are needed most. Judy, you have been a great leader in rough, tough, challenging times, and speaking for those in this room and far beyond, we are grateful for all that you have done for us. On a more personal note, Judy, I have known you for literally all of our lives. I love that we are in part of each other's lives. In our families' lives even more so. Thank you for leading. Thank you for leading. Thank you for learning. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being exactly who you are for the past 2 years. Mazel tov, Judy.
How do you follow that? Moshe, thank you for your beautiful words. You have always been there for me in these last 2 years. Even when I didn't realize you were in Israel and called you at 4 a.m. Judy? But really, whenever I needed advice or historical context or just a friend, you were always there. You always answered your phone. And it's been so wonderful having you at my side these last 2 years, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you. It's been an honor, a privilege, a tremendous learning experience, and a deeply rewarding journey to serve as board chair for the last 2 years. I want to thank my fellow board members for their partnership, their wisdom and support, and of course, our extraordinary and talented professional staff whose dedication makes everything we do possible. I also want to thank my family, especially my husband, David, for their love, support, patience, and understanding of the many demands that come with this role. There were more than a few dinners interrupted by Federation business, and David graciously accepted that at dinner time, saying, "I'll be there in a minute," was more aspirational than actual. I literally remember my daughter, Allie, trying to reach me to tell me the wonderful news that she was pregnant. I was in a meeting, and when I finally was able to call her back, she said, "I actually thought I may not reach you till after this kid was born." And finally, I want to thank my parents, Muriel of blessed memory and Irving Becker. In addition to being all-around incredible parents, they taught my sisters and me a lesson that has stayed with me my entire life. Generosity is not about having the most to give. It's about choosing to give, and that we all have something to contribute. They simply believed that supporting those in need was a non-negotiable. After my mom died, we went through all her papers, and we found charitable receipts from every organization in town. That explained a lot of things. I had no idea that my childhood wish list was competing with the nonprofit sector. Their examples shaped all of us, far more than they probably ever knew. My sisters are deeply involved in their own communities, and I am proud to see those same values reflected in the next generation as well. All of Muriel and Irv's grandchildren are engaged in causes they care deeply about and are finding their own ways to give back. Seeing that legacy continue is a tribute to the example they set and the values they passed on. And in that spirit, as I conclude my term as chair, I've decided to endow my Lion of Judah. It feels like a fitting way to honor the values my parents instilled in me, to affirm my belief in this community, and to help ensure that future generations will have the same opportunities that have meant so much to me and my family. 2 years ago, I stood in this room and outlined 5 very broad but very critical foundational goals that needed to be addressed during my term. Those goals included strategic planning, embarking on a community study, focusing on security, addressing anti-Semitism, and engaging Jewish youth. And because of our dedicated lay leaders, a visionary CEO, our talented and committed professional staff, and your generous support and trust, I'm proud to report the Milwaukee Jewish Federation has made significant and meaningful progress on every one of these priorities. After an exhaustive national search, we selected an exceptional strategic planning consultant to help guide our community in developing a 10-year vision and strategic plan. This summer, we will complete the first of 3 phases of that transformative process. And then there's our community study. We understood that we could not chart a course for the next decade without first understanding the people we serve, all of you. Tonight, thanks to Brandeis University and to the many community members who participated so thoughtfully and candidly, we will learn more about our community than we have known in over 15 years. Those insights will help inform the vision and strategic plan that will shape our future. After seeing anti-Semitic incidents in Wisconsin increase by more than 900% since 2015, and yes, that's 900%, Milwaukee Jewish Federation took action. We launched the Wisconsin Jewish Security Network as a standalone LLC with a singular mission, protecting our Jewish community and the institutions that sustain it. As I mentioned earlier, these numbers are not just statistics. We have witnessed that horrifying real-world consequences of anti-Semitism and hate. Those tragedies serve as a painful reminder that security is no longer optional. It's an essential responsibility. And I want to emphasize that without the work of our Jewish Community Relations Council, we would not have the audited local data that helps us understand the scope of this challenge, track trends over time, and enables us to respond effectively. Next Gen, Student to Student, J-Hub and Herc, Birthright and Hillel are just some of the ways that we are engaging the next generation. We cannot assume that the next generation will engage the way many of us did, but that doesn't mean they care any less about Jewish life or community. It means we need to meet them where they are, understand what inspires them, and create opportunities that are relevant to their lives. Whether through campus life, travel, leadership development, service, advocacy, or community building, we are working to create meaningful connections to Jewish life and build a culture of engagement that is broader, deeper, and more inclusive. Investing in our young people today helps prepare our community for whatever comes next. I've seen this firsthand, not only on my own journey, but through my children as well. Like many young Jews today, my kids have experienced anti-Semitism firsthand, directed right at them. Our investment in Jewish engagement will not prevent those moments from happening, nor will it make them hurt any less. But when you are grounded in your Jewish identity, connected to your community, and surrounded by people who have your back, you are better equipped to face those challenges. What ties all 5 of these priorities together is a simple idea: ensuring that our Jewish community remains strong, resilient, and vibrant for generations to come. I'm also happy to report that among the many milestones of the last 2 years, we were able to renew the contract of our president, our incredible president and CEO, Miriam Rosenzweig. I have loved working with Miriam. One of the things I've come to admire most about her is her judgment. In moments when emotions are running high and strong voices are making their opinions known, she has an extraordinary ability to stay grounded, see the bigger picture, and instead of simply reacting, she keeps the organization focused on its mission. She has guided our community through extraordinary challenges, from the pandemic to the aftermath of October 7th, and in doing so has helped position Milwaukee as a national leader in both combating anti-Semitism and building innovative approaches to community security. And on a personal note, I will especially miss our Monday morning calls on my drive to work. Our intent was always discussing the week ahead, but we somehow always ended up talking about family, life, and everything in between. Those conversations reminded me that strong partnerships are built not only on shared goals, but on genuine friendship. On that note, there is one other person I'd like to thank, Joan Lubar. She's been an extraordinary mentor to me throughout my Federation journey. As a past chair and one of the community leaders I admire most, she has generously shared her wisdom, perspective, and time, but I am most grateful for her loyal friendship. As I have worked on the leadership transition with incoming Chair Sarah Hermanoff, I have reflected on the many ways people choose to contribute to the communities that they care about. When I was younger, my philanthropic contributions were primarily financial. As a working mother, time was in short supply. But as my children became more independent, I found myself with more time to learn about the Federation and its work. The more I learned, the more I liked, and the more I wanted to be involved. A mission trip to Israel in 2020 helped accelerate that journey. Traveling alongside leaders such as Max Rozansky, Steve Kravitz, and Moshe Katz, I saw firsthand how meaningful Jewish experiences can inspire deeper engagement. For me, that led to chairing our annual campaign, then the Israel Emergency Fund, and ultimately serving as chair of the board. Max went on to co-chair the annual campaign with me. Steve became chair of our security committee, and my husband David stepped up to join the foundation board of trustees. As for Moshe, thankfully, he kept doing Moshe. That experience reinforced something I have come to believe. When people feel connected to a community and its mission, they often discover a willingness to give more of themselves than they ever expected. What gives me the greatest optimism for the future is knowing that there are still so many people in our community who have not yet discovered how much they have to offer. Many people may be just one meaningful experience, one relationship, or one opportunity away from becoming more deeply connected. Some will give through philanthropy, some will volunteer, some will lead, some will mentor, some will advocate, some will simply show up when they are needed. But every strong Jewish community is built by people who feel connected to something larger than themselves. My challenge to all of us is simple. Say yes when that opportunity comes. Join the committee, take the trip, attend the event, make the call, mentor a young leader, reach out to someone new. You never know which relationship, invitation, or experience might deepen your connection to this community or change the course of your own journey. I know it did mine. Over the last 2 years, we have created those opportunities through leadership development, youth engagement, community building, and meaningful Jewish experiences. And that engagement is what will sustain and strengthen this community for generations to come. It's not just part of our future, it is the foundation of it. And as much as I will miss being in this role, I am excited to hand the baton to Sarah. She has served on countless committees and is exceptionally well prepared to lead this organization into its next chapter. Sarah, I'm here for you, for anything you may need, and I'm just looking forward to seeing the way you're going to lead us through the next couple of years. Serving as chair has been a great honor. Thank you for this opportunity and for your friendship, your partnership, and support. It has been a privilege to serve this community.
How does one follow that? Good evening. My name is Mark Goldstein, and I'm the chair of the Governance and Nominating Committee, and I'm honored to present the Nominating Committee report for our 2026-2027 Board of Directors. At the Governance Committee, we make a point that the MJF Board is not a final destination. First, we don't want those in the community, especially young leadership, to see it as somehow exclusive or unattainable. And second, and particularly relevant to those of you stepping off the board this year, it better not mark the end of our relationship. I'm looking at Alan and I'm looking at Becca when I say that. All that said, make no mistake that it is the highest level of leadership in the Milwaukee Jewish community, and as such, the issues before the board and the time and energy board members devote to the Federation are also at the highest level. To all those who have served on the Federation board or continue to serve on the board, thank you. And to those just elected, congratulations and thank you in advance. Just as a reminder, according to our bylaws, all members of our corporation are eligible to vote, and anyone who contributes to our annual campaign is a member of the corporation. So tonight we have a full slate of members for elections. First, we nominate 12 individuals for a first 2-year term. They are Susan Angel Miller, Melissa Barnett, Lisa Hiller, Bill Komisar, Lindy Liberman, Joan Lubar, Michael Maestelman, Cheryl Paley, Brian Parrish, Joe Peltz, Michael Sadoff, and Stephanie Wagner. I call for a member to make a motion to elect the nominees recommended by the Governance Nominating Committee. Is there a member who will second the motion? Second. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Next, we nominate 3 individuals for a second, yes. Next, we nominate 3 individuals for a second 2-year term. They are Stephen Aronson, Barbara Glazer, and Jamie Miller. I call for a member to make a motion to elect the nominees recommended by the Governance Nominating Committee. Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. And next, we nominate 6 individuals to continue by virtue of ex officio status. They are myself, Eileen Graves, Susie Honigberg, Ann Jacobs, Moshe Katz, and Betsy Rosenblum. I call for a member to make a motion to elect the nominees recommended by the Governance Nominating Committee. Is there a second? Not Bruce. All in favor? Any opposed? Maybe one. The motion passes. Thank you. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge others who need not be elected tonight, but who are members of the 2026-2027 board, either because they are continuing their board of director terms, or are joining the board or continuing on the board by virtue of their ex officio status as committee chairs. They are Sarah Hermanoff, Judy Corin, Tanya Arbit, Alan Borsick, Jill Plavnik, Raisa Colton, Susan Lubar, Mindy Pillay, and Adam Witkoff. Congratulations to all of our newest board members. And now it's my privilege to welcome to the stage the Milwaukee Jewish Federation's newest board chair, Sarah Hermanoff.
Thank you, Mark, and mazel tov to all the board members. I'm honored to serve in this role and look forward to working with you, all of you, over the next 2 years. I am grateful to our outgoing board chair and my friend Judy Corin for her leadership and her generosity in preparing me for this role. When I call Judy my friend, I truly mean it. Our children grew up together at Gan Ami, Milwaukee Jewish Day School, the same high schools. We share values that shaped how we raise our children to take full advantage of our Milwaukee Jewish community's offerings. And we carry those same values into our Federation work, wanting to ensure people across our community have equally vibrant opportunities. So, Judy, for the leadership, the kindness, and the friendship, thank you. As I look around this room, I am struck by how many of you I have worked with over the years and in my many roles with the Federation. Maybe we worked together during the 10+ years I spent as a member, then chair of the Agency Review Council, and later as chair of the Community Planning and Allocations Committee, all of which work directly with allocations and our partner agencies. Perhaps it's because I've been a member of this board of directors since Dan Bader served as chair, 12 years. Maybe you attended a women's philanthropy event, the affinity group I've been chairing these last 2 years. Or you helped raise emergency pandemic funds with us when I co-chaired our pandemic response. When I was preparing for tonight, I was struck by where we are in this moment. The Federation is poised for dynamic change as we prepare to launch a strategic plan built on all that we learned from our community study. And I realized that all of my diverse and in-depth experiences with the Federation have uniquely prepared me to lead right now. I began in sort of an outside-in way, first working with the impact side of our work, then transitioning into broader leadership roles as a member of the board. This has given me a deep and fundamental understanding of how our agencies function and how the Federation works, from fundraising and event planning to stewardship and allocating the funds that you all so generously provide. I've been engaged in the work of this Federation in one way or another for decades, and I'm excited to bring this unique perspective and all that I've learned to the role of chair. When I think about the incredible leaders that have come before me, people who I consider mentors and friends, I am both energized and honored to be among them. As I served on the board with Dan Bader, Andrea Schneider, Moshe Katz, Joan Lubar, and Judy Corin in their roles as chairs, I have had the privilege of watching each of them bring their own unique approach to the position. I've watched them put their values into the work. And I've learned that through collaborative leadership, we bring people together and act with purpose to fulfill our mission. Miriam, I value our friendship and am grateful to partner with you over the next 2 years. Everyone here knows you're a dynamic leader, a natural teacher, and a tireless advocate. And what people may not know is that you're a true collaborator in your approach to work with your lay leaders, your staff, and the board chair. I am inspired by what we can accomplish as we head into our 125th year of serving this community, and I look forward to working with you, our lay leaders, and our professional staff. One of Federation's greatest strengths is the partnership between our professional staff and lay leaders. I first understood this through my work on allocations with Stephanie Wagner, who was at that time our Chief Marketing and Planning Officer. I brought a keen ability to listen, learn, and understand this community, and Stephanie brought strong strategic tools and a focus on impact. Together, we built a collaboration rooted in mutual respect, with each making the other stronger. That partnership shapes how I approach this work. More recently, I partnered with Deb Carneal-Fendrick in Women's Philanthropy. We recognize that data-driven insights and meaningful feedback would strengthen our success. We both brought strategic vision, combining my community connections with Deb's vast professional tools to turn our knowledge into action. We grew engagement and philanthropy while keeping the joy of this work front and center. These collaborations taught me what makes our Federation distinctive. Our professional staff are truly best in class. They bring exceptional experience, business acumen, and stewardship, and I am deeply thankful for their partnership and genuine commitment. As I wrap up, I am grateful to my dear husband and best friend, Mark, our 3 sons, David, Robbie, Bennett, plus Julia, and my in-laws, Mary Beth and Alan, all of whom are here tonight. Our sons are a beautiful reflection of the best of this community. They remind me of what we're working for, to build a world worthy of the next generation. When we arrived in Milwaukee 27 years ago, this community embraced us. And this is my way of saying thank you. Like those who led before me, I will work thoughtfully with and on behalf of all of you as we strive to build a brighter future for Jewish people in Milwaukee, Israel, and around the world. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'd now like to welcome Tanya Arbit and Jamie Miller, our outstanding annual campaign chairs, to the stage.
As I complete my first year as campaign chair, and as someone who is still relatively new to Federation leadership, I've gained a much deeper appreciation for what the Milwaukee Jewish Federation truly does. Before joining the board, I understood Federation as an important community organization. What I've come to understand is that the Milwaukee Jewish Federation is often the organization behind the organizations. It is the convener, the connector, the safety net, and increasingly the first responder to the challenges facing Jewish life. I've seen firsthand how much work happens every day, often behind the scenes, to strengthen and sustain our economy, our community, and economy.
After many years of involvement, I can tell you that the work has never been more important or more complex. We are living through a moment when the needs are growing in every direction. We're confronting rising anti-Semitism. We're investing unprecedented resources in community security. At the same time, we're supporting Israel and global Jewish community. And we must continue to do what Federation has always done best, caring for those in need and ensuring that every Jew can access a meaningful, proud Jewish life. Those priorities are not separate. They are deeply connected.
And what's really inspired me most this year is seeing how our community understands that. With just 12 days remaining in our campaign, we continue to see donors stepping forward, increasing their gifts, and investing in our shared future. We have now raised almost $7 million because people recognize that this work matters. We're inches away from passing 7 million in this our campaign goal because people are recognizing that our work really matters. Not just in theory, but someday, right now.
And that support is especially meaningful as we prepare to celebrate 125 years of Milwaukee Jewish Federation, next year, 2027. For nearly 125 years, generations of leaders and donors have made sure that when challenges emerged, our community was ready. They built institutions, they cared for people, they created opportunities for Jewish life to flourish. Today, we are the beneficiaries of their vision and the stewards of what comes next.
The challenges before us are significant, but so is the strength of this community. And every day, through the annual campaign, we're seeing that strength in action. To everyone who has given, volunteered, advocated, and led, thank you very much.
Because everything Federation accomplishes is only possible through generosity and commitment of this extraordinary community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Tanya. I want to say that I think being campaign chair is one of the hardest jobs that we have in our community. It's a job that has to go out there and say, we got to do this every year. The campaign chairs aren't raising money for the fun stuff, for the special projects, for the exciting thing that you really that's the thing that gets you going. The campaign chairs are there to make sure that every gift is closed so that we can do this work every day. So can we give another round of applause for the hardest job? Before the pandemic, I had a ritual. Friday afternoon, the office is closed at 3. Everyone knows that I'm useless after 2 on a Friday. I've said that to you. I'm tapped out. I would leave and I would go to my favorite place in the world, which is the Goodwill on Oakland. I love going estate shopping. I love going to vintage stores, and the best Goodwill in the city happens to be on Oakland. It's great. It has all the people who give from the east side. It's the smallest, but it's really, really good. And I love to go there, and there's certain people that I see every time. And even now, I don't get to do it as much, but I still love a good estate sale. And I do one thing wherever I go, which is if I find Judaica, I buy it, because I don't want the anti-Semites to get it. So if you come into my office, you're going to see menorahs, you're going to see candles, you're going to see figurines. I'm there. My sister was in town for Passover, and she said, I really want to go to an estate sale, and we looked up, there was one in Grafton. And I was like, okay, let's go to Grafton. And we walked into a hoarder's house. It was really like, this person has been going to estate sales everywhere. And I see this, and I pick it up, and you can see it had a $3 sticker on it. And I see the menorah, and what it says on it is Distinguished Service, MJWF, the Milwaukee Jewish Welfare Fund. I assume, of course, I go to our archives, I say, Jay, what is this? I don't even know, I still don't really know what it is. We think it's either for coasters or cards. You've seen it before? Evidently, Bruce has one at home, but I didn't ask Bruce. But Bruce is going to be relevant to the story in a minute. But I bring this back, and Jay immediately says, oh, that's from the 1960s. Where did you find it? You know, because I could look at their location, maybe we'll know. And I said, no, this lady for sure bought it somewhere, like, you know, there's no Jews in Grafton, I don't know. We'll look in the community setting, we'll know the answer, because you're there. But it made me realize, like, I don't know who got this distinguished award. I don't know what they did. I know that they were the same people in the room as you. It was just a different year. He said it was the 1960s. Okay, that was the logo. They did something awesome for Jewish Milwaukee. And they served in the roles as campaign chairs, and they served in the role as planning chairs, and they served in the role as showing up to make phone calls or food drives. I don't know. And so I started thinking about the work, and we don't have time tonight to say all the good stuff. So I looked up something else. Bruce Arbit, actually, also has a hobby in which he collects, he buys the old books, the blue books that used to list, they would be our annual reports. And so he shared one with me, and I looked up the 1926 book. Now, here's what I learned. In 1926, now this book starts with, like, there's 25 to 35,000 Jews in the Milwaukee area. Sound familiar? Right? And they're talking about that they raised $350,000, which doesn't sound that much until I did the inflation conversion. It ends up being $6.55 million. Right? Sound familiar? They talk about the history of Jewish Milwaukee, and that in 1902, Milwaukee was one of the leaders to design the federated system, because there were 100 Jewish organizations in Milwaukee that ranged from the Jewish Home to the Abraham Lincoln Settlement House to the Jewish Women's Sewing Society, which sewed clothes for those in need. And they realized that with all of these organizations, we need someone who's making sure that everything is funded and making sure that we're looking at the big picture. And it wasn't to take over all these organizations, it was to coordinate philanthropy and make sure that it's happening. The last thing that it did was it started identifying needs. Now, before I get to the needs, I love this other one because David Brown is evidently the national campaign chair, and he says, and I'm not sure you could read this, says, "It isn't true and it never was." He said, "After accepting chairmanship, I was bluntly told that the Jews of this country were tired of two things, tired of giving and tired of asking." It isn't true and it never was, and it wasn't true then. And I want you to know that, think about it, it's 1926. They don't know that the Great Depression is 3 years away. There's a section on the campaign for Palestine in which the chair of that campaign says, there's nowhere for Jews of Eastern Europe to go. We have to support Palestine. They are looking at the future. They are looking at what's happening in 1926. In the next slide, you'll see one of the things they're planning for is that this community needs a JCC. And they're making the case why a community of our size needs a Jewish community center and why the current system isn't enough. In another page, it talks about expansion of Jewish education, right? The idea that our job is not just to raise the money, but to look at the totality of the picture and say, how do we ensure the future? That's the job. That was a job in 1902, that was a job in 1926, and it's a job in 2026. They could not have foreseen what was coming. And I could say that every year I could say that. We could not have foreseen what was coming. And we get through it. And we raise the money that we need to raise. And we don't just raise the $7 million for the annual campaign, which is so necessary because it's our undesignated, unrestricted dollars. We raise another $13 million for everything else that we need to fund. And we look at other ways to fund things. Our mission hasn't changed, and I'm going to invite you to say it. We take care of the needs of the Jewish people and the vibrant Jewish future where? I could retire. Like, this is amazing. Our job is to take care of the needs. And our job is to understand. It's why we did the demographic study. We needed to understand our community. It's why we did the real estate study, to look at all our properties and fully understand the needs. It's why we're thinking through the strategy for the next 2 years, knowing that we will have a vision for 10 years and a plan for 3, and things are going to happen because that's what we do. And we will respond and we will get through it. I want to talk about how we approach the solutions, because we think about it as only being one path, and that is philanthropy. And so I want to talk about security and how we looked at philanthropy's role, because many communities launched a $20 million security fund, and we didn't. What we looked at was, how do we deal with security? Knowing that security could take up all the money of every agency and every philanthropic dollar in this community if that's what we're going to do, because that's what it costs. We looked at 2 things. One is, how do we lower the cost? And one is, how do we diversify how we're paying for it? We focused on a few areas. One was local philanthropy. The second was national Jewish philanthropy. And the third was federal and then state funding. I want to show you the numbers, because they're extraordinary. We have a generous community, and we've had several significant gifts that have allowed us to now have fully staffed Wisconsin Jewish Security Program, and we've raised almost $4.5 million from local dollars and several $million gifts in there. I want to thank the Lubar family, who this year joined Beta Philanthropy and the Sora Fund to help that. We worked with national partners. JFNA, the Jewish Federations of North America, launched Live Secure, which was a way to bring in national dollars, and they helped bring the TEPRA Fund, which is a special fund for some of our preschool work. We even have a 3-year grant from the New York Federation to fund our intelligence program and cybersecurity. So let's find money outside of our community. I actually tried the Palm Beach community just raised $15 million to fight anti-Semitism, and there's no anti-Semitism in Palm Beach, so I pitched us being their P2G. I'm like, you have so much money and no anti-Semitism. We have lots of anti-Semitism. You could do trips, and they said no. But I'm not going to stop asking. And it's the largest number here that beats everything is the state and the federal funding, and it's really federal. This started before October 7th, and most of the money that went into this community, especially to the physical buildings and to up their security, came from that program. And we made sure that we would write it for any organization in town so that we can get those in. If you look at the next slide and we look at the percentage of money and where it's coming from to pay for securities over the last few years, the majority is coming from state and federal funds. The fees, which is the bottom, is 15%. That's what we've been charging our agencies over the last year and a half, but it doesn't compare to everything else. And we're going to keep doing that, and we're going to try to continue to lower the cost, make sure that we have better security, make sure that we're able to do more, but diversify how we do it. I'm using this as an example because that's the job here. It's not just to say, how do we raise money through the annual campaign? It's not just to say, how do we raise local money? Because there's so much that we want to do, and security will eat it all up, and we need to send kids to camp, and we need to make sure that people are having Jewish education, and that we're taking care of our seniors, and all the other work that happens every single day in this community. So I first want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Ari and the team at the Wisconsin Jewish Security Program. This year, when applying for the security grants, Ari found a way to try to get more money for the synagogues, and he created a consortium that brought in another $1 million for synagogue security through the federal government. We've received a little state money, but we're doing a lot of advocacy with other communities to try to have a similar program to the federal program on a state level so that we can try to hone in on our tax dollars to help pay, so that since we are the only community that have security in order to come into our own spaces. now we're thinking about the future. And we're thinking about how do we sustain this in the long run. And we're thinking about it, how do we do it within everything else and the vision of where we want to be. We're doing it in K through 12 spaces, and I wish I had an hour to talk about all that great work that's happening at J-Hub and at HERC and at Jewish Museum. That's just amazing. I wish I had time to talk about the Women's Lion of Judah conference that sold out in 3 minutes or whatever it was, because our incoming chair called everyone and said, register right now before it's sold out. But what the story is in 1926 and the story is today is being Jewish and being part of community is taking responsibility for each other. It's taking responsibility for each other today and tomorrow and yesterday. And therefore, I want to transition for a moment, and I want to remember the people who are not in the room. Each year, we take a moment to remember the donors who passed away this year. I'd like to invite Stephanie Wagner to come up, and we're going to light a yahrzeit candle. Stephanie's mother, Audrey Bernstein, passed away this year. You also all received a card when you walked in with close to 150 names of people who passed this year. While the loss of Audrey for Stephanie and her siblings is a family loss, it is a reminder for us of the people on that list and what they did and how they led. I met Audrey, I never met Joe Bernstein, but I heard in every agency what Joe did. I heard in the foundation when I saw the papers that they signed with their endowments and what they wanted to achieve. I want to invite everyone to look at the list. There's a saying that we say when someone passes, that we do good deeds on their behalf, and that their neshama should have an aliyah, that their soul should rise up, and that we do it on their behalf. And I want to just take a minute and look at that list and think of someone and what their contribution was, what you know about them, and just take a moment to look at that. And with that, I want to say, may their neshama have an aliyah, because we are all benefiting from the work that they did and the work that we will do. I'm going to transition that in a very fitting way. I shared a little of this earlier. Because remembering the past is always true in community, but it's so true in Milwaukee. I told Judy that my first introduction to Judy was a month after I came at Muriel Becker's funeral. And afterwards I said to her, that was the best funeral I've ever been to in my life. I was like, they kept talking about the Becker girls and the stories of community and family, and I was like, I want to be a part of them. This sounds amazing. And hearing the way Judy told the stories of her parents, and now getting to know Judy and how she talks about her children, I know how rooted she is in the values that they taught in the Lador Vador. She's a living embodiment of it. I said that she had 3 qualities that I knew really made her succeed, the secret sauce. The first is her passion. And her passion causes her to tell, and she tells all of you, and therefore you show up because Judy asked you to. And one of her amazing skills as a campaign chair is that everybody said yes. It was the pandemic. It shouldn't have worked at all. And because Judy was the one to ask and they trusted her, they said yes. And one of the reasons that they trust her, I shared with her that a few weeks ago I was on the phone with Judy. I was driving on a Sunday, and Judy was leaving a wedding shower to head to Chicago to do a shiva call, to turn around and come back to an event. And I'm like, you show up. You show up, and you're persistent, and you make it happen, and you make sure that everybody's seen. And the last is that Judy asks the questions because she wants to understand all sides, and she really listens to the other side. She really wants to hear and understand the viewpoint of each person and what they contribute to the conversation. And that was very helpful for me as someone who's maybe more clear on my opinions. Just Matt, my husband, I just want you to know, they said very nice things about me, remember those parts. But I'm very clear, and I'm ready to go, and having Judy really force me to see the other side, force me to explain the process was helpful for me and helpful for our community and made us better and stronger. I want to thank you for your friendship and the laughter and all the time together. And mazel tov to you and the family. And Ali, I feel like we were all part of your wedding, so we're so happy to have made it happen and, where you are now. I want to welcome Sarah. And it's very unusual to have an incoming chair who's been on the planning side and the campaign side. It's usually one or the other. And I think that perspective is going to be really incredible. But what I've also learned about you is that you show up. You are there because you believe in the work. You believe it needs to be done right and with the right process. You say what you mean and you mean what you say with great integrity. And I'm so looking forward to working with you, to learning with you, and for seeing the many coffee dates that she's going to have in her sunroom, living room, that if you haven't been to, you'll probably be at. I want to thank the current board and the incoming board. I don't know if you know, the Milwaukee Jewish Federation has 4 board meetings, plus the annual meeting in May and June, because there's so much work to do, and there's so much that we need to. So thank you for the time and the commitment. You do all that every year, and it's an honor to work with you. I want to thank the Milwaukee Jewish Federation staff who are here, who are who make it happen. And my answer usually when you ask a question is, I don't know, I need to ask, because they're doing the actual work. And to my colleagues who are in the room, the Jewish professionals who are doing all the work that we're making sure that we want done is happening at the agencies. Whoever started the clap, yeah, thank you. So I'm about to turn it over to Alicia, and who's going to walk us through the community study. After she speaks, we're going to do a deep dive for a few minutes on one of the topics that she mentioned, to look at our data and compare it to national data. When she's giving the information on Israel and on Zionism, I want you to listen, because we're going to come back and compare it to national data, and then ask, what does this mean for how we look at the data that we have? So the question of what does the word Zionism mean and who is Zionism is in that 1926 book, where it lists that the Reform synagogues are Zionists and the Orthodox synagogues aren't yet, and these things shift over time. It's like we need to upload it to ChatGPT and have it diagnose all the things that are going on, but these conversations were happening there, and they're happening now, and it's worth remembering that this too shall pass, and we're going to be here for another 100 years. So I would now, yeah, thank you. Someone's happy. I have your bio somewhere else. So I'm going to tell you, Alicia Chandler, first of all, I've known her from Detroit, and we were both in different roles at the time. But Alicia is with Brandeis. She has a JD from Harvard, and she's getting another PhD from Wayne State University. And I remember, because I read it, the topic of her thesis is about intermarried couples and the impact on the Jewish community. So I think we're going to want to read her thesis. And she's here to share with us an overview of the community study. So thank you, and we're excited to hear it.
Hold on one moment while I get set up here. Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody. Again, my name's Alicia, and I'm thrilled to be here representing the Cohen Center for Modern Jewish Studies at Brandeis University. So before I start, I want to say thank you. As you all know, you have a wonderful professional staff that has been such a pleasure for us to work with over the past few years of the study. So I want to just say thank you for all the hard work that's been put in by your professionals and your lay leaders to get us to this moment. Also, as any good social scientist, I want to acknowledge my bias up front. And my bias is that I love getting to spend time with Midwestern Jews. As Mary mentioned, I am the product of a Midwestern city. I still live in a Midwestern city. And please don't out me to my colleagues in Boston. I much prefer being in Midwestern cities. So we're going to start with just a little bit of Torah today. So when my son, who's about to go off to college, but when he had his bar mitzvah, his portion was Bamidbar. So for any of you who know your Torah, Bamidbar starts with a census. So from the beginning, from when we were wandering in the desert, we wanted to count all the Jews and know how many Jews there were. So we today we're in a biblical space. We have been doing this for a long time. Now, I should say, and I'm not going to talk a lot about methodology, because as I know from teaching college level statistics, no one who is not a math person wants me to talk about methodology. But what we did was not a census. A census means I would have gone to all approximately 17,000 Jewish households in Milwaukee and talked to every one of you. What we did was a survey both of greater Milwaukee, to both Jews and non-Jews, to determine how many Jews live in Milwaukee, as well as a deeper dive into Jewish Milwaukee to discover who you are, your demographics, your opinions, your behaviors. So, I know not everyone in this room is a numbers person. So for those of you who love numbers, we will have numbers. For those of you who don't love numbers, what we have here is a story. The numbers tell a story, and that's a story of Jewish Milwaukee at this point in time. And I'm so excited that you are about to embark using this data to look toward your next 10 years. And you can go from a place of strength to strength, knowing where you are now and helping design where you are going. So let's see. I was told to press the green button. And now, oh, there we went. Yay. Okay. So as I tell this story, there's a few questions I want you to consider up front. What, when you hear the data, is surprising to you? What sort of says, oh, that's not what I thought that would be? What is validating? What confirms what you already know living in this community? For those of you who serve in lay leadership or are Jewish professionals, what information can you take from the study to inform your work for this community? And most importantly, what would you like to know more about? Because I'm going to talk to you for a little bit here, but think of this as the appetizer to a main course, which is the report, which is now public on your webpage as well as on the Cohen Center's webpage. So, for those of you who want to read all 155 pages, I love you. But for many of you, you're going to dive into the pieces that you really care about, and there's going to be much more detail in that report. So, to give a little guide, we're going to go through demographics, we're going to go through behaviors, we're going to go through your population estimate, we're going to talk about philanthropy, we're going to talk about Israel. Now, there won't be a Q&A here because it's important to stay on schedule, but I will stick around after the meeting, so if anyone does have questions, find me at the back of the room. We can nerd out on numbers all you want. So, the headline of every Jewish study, whether we like it as professionals or not, is how many Jews are there? So here's the headline. I'm not going to keep you in suspense. We found about 34,000 people live in Jewish households. Now, that doesn't mean there are 34,000 Jews in Milwaukee. 80% of those people living in Jewish households are in fact Jewish, but again, 20% are not, and those are generally the spouses of Jews in the community. Though it's also possible that we have a non-Jewish roommate or another non-Jewish family member living in a Jewish house. So, I should backtrack a little bit. What do we consider a Jewish household? Any household here in Milwaukee with at least one Jewish adult, we count as a Jewish household. So overall, we have approximately 27,500 Jewish individuals who are living in these households. Most are adults, but we also have 4,500 children in Jewish households, over 90% of whom are identified by their parents as Jewish. Now, this map can be a little confusing seeing on the screen, so give me a minute to talk about geography. Now, when you get the report, you'll see this in a little more detail along with a little sort of more blown up version of the North Shore. But the takeaways from this slide are 54% of Jewish households live in the North Shore, with the next largest concentration, 22%, being in the city of Milwaukee. Now, you see a bunch of red dots on here. And I'm going to explain the red dots, but I don't want us to get distracted by them. So let me explain. Each red dot is an estimated 25 households. So what this map is designed for us to do is to look at the density of the community. But here's the thing, and that I want everyone to know, that when we break down the data by zip codes, for it to be as accurate as we were on a whole community level, I would have to have 1,000 Jewish households surveyed from every zip code. We don't have 1,000 Jewish households in every zip code, so this is an estimate. So you might see a zip code where you know there are Jews, and there's not a red dot. Don't focus on that. It just means that as we sample people, no one in that zip code was picked up. You also might see a zip code where you're like, there's no Jews who, wait, what was the town name? Grafton. There's no Jews in Grafton. So not to undercut Miriam, who is the most exceptional of Jewish communal professionals, but what I've learned doing this work, there are always Jews where you think there's not Jews. Go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, I'll find you Jews. So don't let any particular dot distract you, but this is an approximation of the density of Jewish households in your community. Now we're going to go through a few more demographics. First off, this slide might not surprise you. The Jewish adults of Milwaukee skew a little older than both the general population here in Milwaukee, as well as the US Jewish population as a whole. So what we found was about 2/3 of Jewish adults in Milwaukee are over the age of 50. Now to compare that, 35% of the wider population in Milwaukee is over the age of 50, and about half of the overall Jewish population in the United States is over the age of 50. So that's where you compare. We found that, okay, we're going back to high school statistics here. The median Jewish age here is 56. So that means if I lined every Jew up from oldest to youngest, the one directly in the middle, they would be 56 years old. Moving on to congregational life, we found that 32% of Milwaukee Jewish households belong to some type of Jewish congregation. So what do I mean by Jewish congregation? We cast a very wide net when defining Jewish congregation. So this could mean synagogues or temples, independent minyanim, havarot, Chabad, high holiday congregations. The question is, do you consider yourself or someone in your household a member of any Jewish congregation? When we look at folks who belong to what we refer as a more traditional synagogue and pay dues, that number is 13%. But we have to remember that more Jews participate in congregational life that actually are members or pay dues, which I know is a struggle for congregations all over the country. So when we talk about who shows up to congregations, that might look a little bit different. So 56% of Jewish adults in Milwaukee showed up to services sometime in the past year. 20% of Jewish adults go monthly, and 41% showed up at the high holidays. So as you notice there, the high holiday number, higher than the membership number. That's a trend we're seeing and something that I know your congregations will be more interesting to dig into. Now we're going to turn to denomination for a moment, but at Brandeis we really don't like to focus a lot on denomination, and there's an important reason for that. When I talk about denomination, you may hear or picture sort of stereotypical behaviors of each denomination and associate that with these numbers. And I don't want you to do that. We're going to talk in a few minutes about behaviors separately. So this is just when I ask you what your denomination is, what you say back to me. But we know from studies that we have some Reform Jews who mark Shabbat every week, go to services every week, keep kosher, and we also know we have folks that are conservative, that say they're conservative, that haven't been in a temple or a synagogue in 5 years. So let's put aside the stereotypes and just look at denominational identification. What we found is that Milwaukee really closely matches the national numbers. 38%, Milwaukee Jews identify as Reform. 37% identify as no denomination, or what we sometimes call just Jewish. And that's a little higher, I should say, than the national number. And then the one place where you differ is you have less conservative identifying Jews than the national figure. But again, overall, you look very much like US Jews on the whole here. Now I'm going to go to everyone's favorite topic, which is kids. So as I mentioned at the top, you have 4,500 Jewish children in Milwaukee Jewish households, the vast majority of which identified by their parents as Jewish. And the great news is a full 60% of those children had some form of Jewish education. And I should say in the past year prior to the survey. We're just looking at that year before the survey. And why that is so important is we know the number one thing we can do to have engaged, committed Jewish adults is to provide our children with meaningful educational Jewish experiences growing up. And this is evidence that you're doing that. Now I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about behaviors. So as I mentioned, at Brandeis, we don't love talking about denominations because we think it oversimplifies things. What we do have is developed several years back by my colleague Janet Aronson is an index of Jewish engagement. And what this does is we take, in this case, 20 behaviors of Milwaukee Jews and put it into really complicated statistical modeling and develop 4 different models of how people do Jewish. So it helps us talk about Jews differently, based not on what they call themselves, but what they actually do in their day-to-day lives. So, what are these 20 behaviors that we look at? There's 4 groups here. So one group, we have some holiday behaviors. So examples would be going to a Seder, lighting Hanukkah candles. We also have ritual behaviors. So this might be keeping kosher, marking Shabbat. We have organizational behaviors, like joining a congregation, like writing a check to Federation. We have individual behaviors. So those are the things you do on your own. So eating Jewish food, engaging with Jewish culture, studying Jewish text. So in doing this, what did we find? We found that 42% of the community is what we would call minimally involved. Now, this doesn't mean that they don't do anything Jewish. It doesn't mean that Judaism is not important to them, but they don't do a lot. So they're more likely to engage in holiday behaviors than anything else. So an example from this group would be 63% lit Hanukkah candles in the past year. But they're not likely to be at your meetings. They're not likely to be at synagogue. Next, we have organizational Jews. So this is 22% of the community. So these folks also do a bunch of holiday things, but they also are really involved in your communal organizations. So one example is 92% of this group donated to Jewish causes in the past year. So this is an important group. We also have ritual Jews. Now, ritual Jews are actually pretty high in all of the metrics we look at, but where they really stand out is ritual behaviors. So for example, 94% of this group went to high holiday services, 73% keep kosher. And lastly, we have the immersed Jews. The immersed Jews are the Jews that do everything. All 4 behaviors, they're there. So I'm not going to tell you what they do a lot of, because that's pretty much everything, but what I notice is in Milwaukee, this group sort of stands out for being a little lower in joining organizations than I thought they would be. So only 46% of this group said they belong to a Jewish organization. So that might be an opportunity going forward. So I want to compare this to denomination, since I told you you can't just align behaviors with denomination. So what you see here is not entirely surprising. Most Orthodox Jews fall in that immersed category. They do most of the things. Conservative, most Jews are in either the ritual or immersed categories. For Reform Jews, you have a chunk that are minimally involved, but you also have a lot of Reform Jews who are in the ritual category. Those who identify with other denominations in this case tend towards the immersed category. But this last one is the one I think is really important. Those folks that say, I'm just Jewish. Now, sometimes we talk about just Jewish as a cop-out, as folks that are not involved, but that's not actually what we see in the data. So while those just Jewish folks make up 48% of the minimally involved group, they also make up 52% of your organizational Jews, 20% of your ritual Jews, and 12% of your immersed Jews. So just because someone says they're just Jewish, it doesn't mean that we write them off in Jewish life. There actually might be vital parts of Jewish life. They've just chosen, for whatever reason, not to have a denominational label. Okay, now we're going to move on to one of my favorite topics, which is volunteerism and philanthropy. So, Milwaukee, you are exceptional. You're exceptional in lots of ways, but this is an area that really jumped out to me in the data. So what we found in doing the study is that 58% of Milwaukee Jewish adults had volunteered in the past year. Now, we don't have great national data on volunteerism. I wish we did. But what we did do is we have done at Brandeis 30 studies of communities over the past 10 years. In those 30 communities, you guys are in the top 5 for volunteerism. So I think that's something to be very proud of. Philanthropy is also an area that you stood out. 62% of Jewish households had contributed to a Jewish cause in the past year. 82% had contributed to a charitable cause overall, but 62% to a Jewish cause. Now, looking again at those 30 communities, that's about average. But I said you were exceptional, and I stand by that. And the reason is, as we'll talk about shortly, Milwaukee has a smaller percentage of high-income households, so households making over $200,000 a year, than a lot of the other cities. And despite this lack of high percentage of high-income households, you still gave at wonderful levels. So it really shows a commitment to Jewish life that I think is a model for a lot of people. So we don't want to just talk about the positive. We also want to talk about things that can be opportunities for the community, things we can learn from. So one thing we ask folks is, what are barriers to participation in Jewish life? Now, this might be, we're asking someone who's already participating, is there anything that's preventing you from participating more? Or if you don't participate, what can we do to make you participate? Now, we don't ask this, I should note, of folks who say, I'm not interested. Because if you're not interested in Jewish life, okay, that's our answer. We care about lowering barriers for those who want to be here. So what did we find? 74% of Jewish adults cited some barrier to participation. Again, this is folks who participate as well as folks who don't. And the top 2 I want to focus on for a moment. The top one, 35%, don't know many people. This is something we see around the country. It's hard. You guys know the people in the room when you come here. If you're a Jew who doesn't know the people in the room, it makes it harder to enter the room. So what can we do to lower that barrier for folks? The next is they haven't found programs of interest. Now, that there might be programs of interest that they're not hearing about, or maybe there's some other aspect of Jewish life that is a need not being met. But that is true for 34% of Jewish adults. Now, this looks a little different if we break it out by subpopulations. So, while I said that not knowing people is a barrier for 35% of Jewish adults, if we look just at the city of Milwaukee, that number goes up to 50%. So that's a large barrier for folks participating in Jewish life that needs to be discussed. Now, affordability overall was cited by 21% of Jewish adults. But when we look at our youngest age cohort, those under the age of 40, that number rises again almost to 50%. So then we have to look, if people aren't in the room, what's preventing them from being there and see what we can do to lower those barriers. Now, I do want to note, we obviously heard a lot tonight, as we need to, sadly, about safety and security. But while I hate a world where any Jew feels like they can't enter the room because of fears about safety and security, this was actually the least cited of all of the barriers, being a barrier to 13% of Jewish adults. So while we can all agree that's 13% too high, also it's remarkable in these times that we're having that that number was as low as it was. So let's move on for a moment and talk about anti-Semitism. We ask about anti-Semitism in a few different ways. So the first thing we talk about is how concerned are you about anti-Semitism? That question is one we ask in 3 different ways. We ask, how concerned are you about anti-Semitism in the Milwaukee area? How concerned are you about anti-Semitism around the world? And then how concerned are you about anti-Semitism on college campuses? Let me talk about the first 2. When you hear around the world, I want you to think this is how people feel about anti-Semitism generally. It's in the ether. How concerned am I? How much is it worrying me? Not specific to me, not specific to my community, but just in the generalized way. But when we ask about it in the Milwaukee area, then people are asking about their day-to-day lives, about the spaces and places that they find themselves in. So what we found is while 76% of Jewish adults were very concerned about anti-Semitism around the world, and by the way, virtually every Jew is either somewhat or very concerned about anti-Semitism around the world, as you can see. The number drops to 44% being very concerned about anti-Semitism in Milwaukee, 39% being somewhat concerned. So the numbers drop slightly, but unfortunately this is the reality of the world that we live in. Now, how concerned are people about anti-Semitism on college campuses? We know this has been a great discussion point within our community over the past few years. So 70% of the population is very concerned, 13% is somewhat concerned. But where I want to break that down a little further is a finding which stood out to us, is when we look at this by age, the youngest Jews, so those between 18 and 39, that group was actually the least concerned about anti-Semitism on college campuses. So those who are either on campus or have likely more recently been on campus, 42% of them were very concerned, and it was over 70% in every other age group. So that's just one of those differences that we want to sort of look at more as we talk about the study. Now, it's not just about our concern about anti-Semitism, we know. It's also about our experiences of anti-Semitism. So we ask this question in a very specific way. We don't ask if you experienced anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, that number would be much higher than the numbers I will talk about. What we ask is, were you personally targeted by an anti-Semitic incident in the past year? And the reason we ask like that is it's that targeting, it's that psychological intent that we think garners a more accurate assessment of anti-Semitism. And this language is also used in a lot of national studies on anti-Semitism to make the numbers more comparable. So we found that of Jewish adults in Milwaukee, 34% were personally targeted by an anti-Semitic incident in the past year. Now, thank God, most incidents were verbal, which is not good, but better than some alternatives. But 3% of Jewish adults did report either an attack or a threat of an attack, and 2% reported an incident of vandalism. So we also, and this is not shown on the slide, we also asked if you were personally targeted by an anti-Semitic incident, did you report it? That could be to the ADL, to law enforcement, to the Federation, did you report it? Now we found that 19% of folks who had personally experienced anti-Semitism did report it, and that's comparable to the national numbers that were found by AJC. Now for those who don't report, mostly that's because either they don't think the incident was that serious, or they don't think anything will happen as a result of the report. We did find 12% who didn't know who to report it to. So that might be an opportunity for education in the future. We also asked Jewish adults, had they avoided anything, had they changed their behavior because of a fear of anti-Semitism? And 49% had, which is sad and striking. So mostly that means people who avoided revealing that they were Jewish, either in person or online, or folks who had avoided mentioning Israel, again, either in person or online. This is an area where we did find a slight geographic difference, where 57% of Jews in the North Shore had avoided at least one activity out of fear of anti-Semitism, and that, again, that compares to 49% overall. So a little bit different there. Next, I'm going to move on to talk about finances. So we study finances in a few different ways. One is we ask folks about their income. But we find that income sometimes isn't enough. It gives us some information, but not everything we need. So we also ask people about how they experience their standard of living. One person can make $50,000 a year and feel that they're well off, and someone else can feel that they're struggling. So we look at both of these things. So overall, again, this is the top line. The Jewish community of Milwaukee is affluent. But as I mentioned before, you do have less high earners over $200,000 a year than the national average, which is 22% of Jewish households. Now, flipping to the other end of the scale, 3% of households in your Jewish community are below the federal poverty line. Now, that is much less than overall households in Milwaukee, in which 12% are below the federal poverty line, but we still don't want to see any Jews in poverty. Now, the federal poverty line, while it's an important guideline, we don't think it's enough. We think it's really set in a lot of ways too low. So we also ask about the 250% of the federal poverty line, and in that case, 16% of Jewish households are below that level of 250% of the federal poverty line. So, while true poverty is rare in the community, there are a lot of folks that are struggling. And again, let's go back to that other definition I talked about, the standard of living. 22% of your community considers themselves well off, but an equal percentage, 22%, find they're struggling, in which they answered either they cannot make ends meet or they are just managing to make ends meet. So we're going to dig into economic hardship a little bit more. So 11% of Jewish households experienced hardship, any hardship, in the past year. And 17% have experienced it in the last 3 years. So what can that mean? Well, this can be hardships when it comes to healthcare, utility, transportation, rent. So this slide breaks that down. But I want to focus for a minute on another statistic. We asked if you had an emergency, unexpected $400 expense, could you pay that either in cash or on a credit card that you could pay off by the end of the month? For 11% of households, they could not do that. And we know that $400, I mean, that's a flat on the highway. That's one trip to the ER, even with insurance coverage. So these are folks it's important that we don't forget about. We also know that the issues of financial struggling can be related with disability. So I want to move on to the issue of disability next. 34% of Jewish households have at least one person with a chronic health issue, disability, or health need, which limits their participation in either work, school, or another activity. So these households are much more likely to experience poverty and other financial hardship than the community at large. Now here I show 3 different illnesses: chronic illness, mental and emotional health issues, and physical disability. But in the report, we talk about many more health concerns that are experienced by your community. And lastly, I want to move on to the subject of Israel. Now, Miriam's going to talk a little bit more about Israel in a few minutes, but let me just give you some top-line numbers. Your community is very attached to the state of Israel. Now, 56% of your community has traveled to Israel. 8% has lived there. 69% of the community consider themselves somewhat or very attached to Israel. These are all wonderful numbers. We also asked about change in attachment since October 7th, and we found that since that time, 46% of your community has said their emotional attachment to Israel has grown stronger. Now, often when we talk about Israel, we tend to focus on disagreements. Like, this is the oi part, not the joy part. But what I want to say is that when we looked at attitudes in this community around Israel, we actually found a lot of consensus. So in 4 of the questions that we asked, we had in the high 80s or low 90s% agreeing with these statements. 1, I consider it important that Israel give equal recognition to Jews of all denominations. 2, Israel should be a democratic state for all of its citizens, regardless of religious identity. 3, I think that Israel is under constant threat from hostile neighbors who seek its destruction. And 4, I consider it important for Israel to be a Jewish state. When you hear all 4 of those things, know that 84% or more of your community agrees with those statements. Again, there's a large amount of consensus. So where might there be more mixed opinions? Well, we asked if you think that Israel regularly violates the human rights of the Palestinian people. In that case, 38% of the community disagreed with that statement, 32% agreed with that statement, and 11% wasn't sure. I often feel my views about Israel are unwelcome in Jewish settings. This is a problem we have across the country right now. Like, can we bring our whole selves into the space? 37% disagreed with that statement, 42% agreed with that statement, and 21% weren't sure. And lastly, I often feel I don't know enough to participate in conversations about Israel. 56% disagreed, 42% agreed, and only 3% weren't sure. So there are some folks that might need additional education about Israel to feel comfortable participating in these conversations. But your takeaway really here is this is a large amount of consensus. So again, focus on that joy and not just the oi. So before I turn it over to Miriam, I want to go over a few technical details. As I said at the top, the study report is online. If you are a data nerd and want to read 155 pages, you are my people, I love you. Now, there's also, if you want to get even deeper, a technical appendix. So this has all of the methodology, this has the instrument, the way we ask the questions, and the code book. Also online are what we call comparison charts. These are really big Excel files that break down all of the data so you can see everything if you want to. And lastly, if you're a real stats nerd, we have the data set online. Now this is de-identified, no one will know what you answered to the questions, but for those who can use Stata or SPSS, you can actually do your own analysis. No one ever actually takes me up on that, but I always offer it out there. So what I hope that this introduction has done is make you, if you not read the whole survey, then dive into those pieces that you care about, those pieces that help your work, and really participate in this telling the next 10 years of the story of Milwaukee. Thank you so much to the Federation, to all the organizations and agencies. I would be remiss if I say thank you most importantly to the 980 members of the community that filled out the surveys. Thank you everyone for your time.
I now just want to spend a few minutes talking about so now what, right? So I wanted to tell you that we've done these presentations and we've started rolling this out by meeting with the leadership of the communities and different organizations and sharing this data. And I want you to know that one thing happens in every meeting. Someone hears one piece of data and they want to make an assessment from it. Alicia referenced two different statements about security. One was when we asked about barriers, only 13% said. The reason, is it a barrier to show up to a program? Only 13% no. When they asked, did you change your behavior in the last year? 49% said, I changed it because I'm afraid of anti-Semitism. And I don't know what that means. But I know that I have further questions before making a determination. And so the full data is on our website. By July 1st, the summary that we're putting together to go public and officially announce it, where we pick out some of the data, because people are going to try to misuse this information. And I want to show you one of those numbers and what it tells us. So we asked a question about Zionism. And sorry, I left off one more thing, which is the other one is that they're going to say, well, you only asked the wrong 980 people, but if they had asked my friends, they would have gotten a different answer, which is why we went with the statistics, because we need to understand it. But I want to show you some of our answers compared to the same questions being asked nationally. JFNA, since October 7th, has been doing engagement and Israel pulse polls, and we want to see where do we compare, because we were about a year after October 7th when we did it. So I'm going to start with, can you go to the next slide? When we talked about are you emotionally attached to Israel, right? As Alicia said, we come up very high, right? National is 71, we're at about 70% as well. Our community feels very attached to Israel. There is some drop in that number from the immediately post-October 7th to that nationally, but we can verify that when we talk about Israel, it's the same as they are in a national part. A slide that Alicia didn't show was, then we asked about the word Zionism. And on our survey, when we asked, are you a Zionist, 42% said yes, 42% said no, and whatever numbers are left over, Matt, you'll tell me, said I don't know. 42%, nationally it's 37%. So it's very similar, right? And I want you to remember the slide you just saw from Alicia. One of the things our community agrees on is that Israel should be a Jewish state. You heard that? What's the core of Zionism? That Israel should be a Jewish state. What we learn from these surveys is not are people Zionists in the way Zionists would define it. It's do people have agreement with the word Zionist that has a brand problem right now? And people don't want to be attached to it or they don't know what it means. And so it's really important for us to look at that because there's going to be people who are going to try to pull out this number and see, you see, 42% of Milwaukee is not Zionist. No, 42% of Milwaukee agrees with the term and 42% doesn't agree with the term, but in their behavior, should Israel be a Jewish state? The core of that they do. And therefore, we need to know, A, we have a language problem, right? When someone says they're not a Zionist, doesn't mean that they hate Israel. We know that we have an education problem. And as we work through this demographic study, we have the responsibility to make sure that we're explaining and not just using one piece of data. I'm sharing that with you because what's going to be happening over the next 24 hours is that there's going to be some deeper dives by topics with different professionals in the community, and we're going to keep using it. And you're going to be able to look at it and continue to learn from it, and we're going to continue to look at these numbers and compare them to other cities to understand the impact and to understand where we are. We have an amazing community that's very philanthropic, even though it's not as wealthy as other communities, and we're going to only build on that strength. So thank you, and I believe I'm calling Moshe Katz. You may know him.
I should start by saying thank you for sticking around. A short while ago, I shared words from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, words that I morphed into praise for our outgoing chair of the board, Judy Corin. I want to redirect two of those principles, specifically, no one leads alone, and leadership is about the future. You've just heard a lot about our future and how we plan to use the information received of our Jewish community survey to form thoughtful approaches as we now lead our community for the next 10 years with a strategic plan we are now crafting. Central to that visioning will be the role of the Milwaukee Jewish Community Foundation. I am extremely proud that I am chair of that foundation and what impact you will have on it. We have a robust $250 million foundation. And as healthy as that number is, it's simply not going to be enough to keep our community thriving for the decades ahead of us. We will need to continue to open more donor-advised funds like the 18 we did this past year. We will need to open more endowment funds like the 3 Lions of Judah and 3 memorial and 1 perpetual annual campaign funds. Thank you, Judy, for adding yourself to that one and leading by example. Many of you knew Lucy Rosenberg. Lucy was one of the people that we just simply saw everywhere. How many of you saw Lucy in an event? How many of you saw Lucy at a lot of events? That's where she was. She, along with her beloved husband, Jack Rosenberg, left us 2 truly spectacular funds. And we are proud to share that we have received the largest gift to our community's foundation ever in our history for $29,500,000 from Jack and Lucy Rosenberg. We cannot wait to share how these funds will impact on our community as we roll out the spending discipline we are now setting up. I'm also thrilled to share that we've applied for and are hoping to be participating in the second round of the Life and Legacy program. Are you serious? You couldn't have told me that 4 minutes ago? So let me repeat this. I am thrilled to share that we have been accepted to participate in the second round of the Life and Legacy program of the Harold Grinspoon Foundation. Many of us were participants in the original program to create a Jewish legacy, and many of the organizations here that we love so dearly were recipients of our generosity. I would be remiss if we didn't do a shout out to Jody Kaufman-Lowenstein for her exemplary leadership of Create a Jewish Legacy. And for all the organizations that are left in the room tonight, you know exactly who I'm talking about, how much work she did for us. She was amazing. So let's just clone her for this next year. At last year's annual meeting, I shared a vision, one that promises a more affordable future for our Jewish community, a vision that can only happen if more of us behave like Jack and Lucy Rosenberg. I shared that if each of us committed to 10% of our net worth to our Jewish community, we would no longer have to worry about affordable Jewish day school or the cost of sending our kids to Jewish summer camp. We wouldn't have to decide about choosing a trip to Israel or belonging to a synagogue. A few years ago, I had a set of circumstances that left me thinking about my own fragility and the impact that my Deborah and I could have in our own community. We sat with our Sid and our Gabe and shared that we wanted to make a commitment to donate 10% of our net worth to our donor advised fund upon our death. Deborah and I have made that commitment, and I'm asking each and every one of you to do the same thing. Think about this. Think about what message you will be sending to your children and your friends' children. Think about how you and your family and friends could literally change the dynamics, the access, the enjoyment, and everything else our Jewish community does to thrive. Think of everything you've already done and think about what will happen long after you're gone. Giants have preceded my tenure as chair of the State of Israel Bonds, the Israel Committee, Partnership Together, RJCC, the Milwaukee Jewish Federation, and now the Milwaukee Jewish Community Foundation. These words are on the walls of our buildings. As they planted for those that would come after them, it is my turn to do it too, and now it is your turn to do the same. Tonight I'm asking you to change the future. I'm asking you, and maybe even telling you, it's now your turn to do this as well. Judy, would you please come back here one more time? Let's give her one more round of applause and thanking her for all she has done for our community for the past 2 years. Thanks.
Wow, Deb and Moshe, that is incredible. What an incredible example. So much generosity, and you guys are amazing, and we're so lucky to have you in this community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Guess what? With that, for the final time, we're adjourned. All right. All right. Thanks, everybody.
את עצמך בוא נברח אל מקום בו השמש תזרח עלינו, היא עוד תזרח עלינו. אין לי ספק שנוכל לתקן ולתת לניגון לכוון אותנו, הוא יכוון. אתה יודע יש מקום אי בודד